Well, Israel says it's degrading Iran's nuclear capability with airstrikes on facilities across the country. But so far, Iran's secretive Fordo fuel enrichment plant has remained intact. It's buried deep underground and is considered virtually unreachable by conventional aerial weapons. But if the U.S. decided to enter the conflict, its so-called bunker buster bombs could change all of that.
This could be Iran's worst nightmare. The GBU-57, better known as a bunker buster or the Massive Ordnance Penetrator. And the US is the only country in the world that has them.
The GBU-57, which is the Massive Ordnance Penetrator that's being discussed heavily in terms of American involvement in Iran, can actually penetrate up to 200 feet before detonating its ordnance. It is the only weapon in anyone's arsenal globally that's able to successfully target and potentially even eliminate facilities like Fordo. It was designed originally with the intent of attacking and destroying targets specifically built into mountains.
The Fordo facility southwest of Tehran is at the heart of Iran's nuclear program. It includes hundreds of centrifuges, reportedly buried up to 90 meters underground inside a mountain. And according to the International Atomic Energy Agency, the site has been used by Iran to enrich uranium to 60%, well beyond what's required for civilian purposes. But for the US to get its bunker busters in range of Fordo, it will need to use its B-2 stealth jets. They're the only aircraft certified to carry the giant bombs that weigh in at around 14 tons. But each bomber can only take 2 of them, and analysts say any attack on the Fordo facility would likely require more.
So it wouldn't just be a single munition dropped or even 2 from one airplane. It would be multiple strikes kind of barrowing down into that target set over time, kind of drilling down towards the target.
Logistics and refueling support for the B-2s is another factor that the US will need to consider. The jets can fly around 11,000 kilometers without refueling, but can go even further with just one mid-air top-up. The Indian Ocean island of Diego Garcia sits around 4,000 kilometers from Iran's southern coast. The US has recently had a squadron of its bombers stationed at its base there, with Iran well within striking range. The big question now is whether US President Donald Trump will open the door to US military action in Iran and give the go-ahead to unleash America's bunker buster bombs.
And William Alberque joins me now. He's a former NATO official with a focus on arms control and non-proliferation. Today, he's with the Pacific Forum and joins us in the studio today. Thank you so much. We heard it there. It might not even be enough to throw one of these 30,000-pound bunker-busting bombs on the Fordo plant. How likely is success, given the complications involved?
In order to really destroy the facility, they would have to use multiple of these bombs, because each one can penetrate rock maybe 8 meters, 9 meters, something like that. And we're talking about a facility that's 80 to 90 meters underground. So you're right, 13,600 kilogram bomb landing on this place is going to do damage to its entrance. It might even send a shockwave through that'll do damage, but to really destroy it, you need to hit it over and over and over again. And so if the US goes in, it's not going to be a single bombing run. It's going to be multiple bombing runs that could be hours and possibly even days, where you do bomb damage assessment and then you come in and hit it again and again and again. And
once that mission would be completed, let's say it's in the cards, with this installation so deep underground, how would they even know that the mission was successful?
Well, one way would be if they blow it open. If they hit it so many times that you actually see parts of it collapsing. If you see, rock slides or things like that. They'll also be listening with seismographic instruments to try to hear if there's a collapse, if there's if there's enough of a large collapse that was really destroyed. They might be able to detect it from remote seismology, things like that. They'll be using satellites with synthetic aperture radar to look for collapses, all that kind of stuff.
How dangerous would that be, talking about radiation?
Not very.
Okay.
When you're enriching uranium, is a powder. They're enriching it in a gas form. If you burned it in this room, we'd run. You wouldn't want to breathe it in. Mm-hmm. But outside of the facility, it's very unlikely that anyone would be affected. Even if all of it is aerosolized, it gets up into the clouds, it's alpha particles, so your skin stops it, paper stops this isn't a nuclear explosion that will occur. It's some minor radiation release is really the worst thing. So on site, you could see some people affected, but off site, very low chance of effects.
If the U.S. decided to get involved, how would you expect Iran to react?
I think it would be such an existential crisis for Iran. In the immediate phase, they would have to consider surrender, because I don't think they would just go after this facility. There may be other secret facilities we don't know about. The U.S. may consider going after, as you heard, the supreme leader or other senior members of Iranian leadership. So in a way, if they hit Fordo facility, you would anticipate the Iranians would then consider that they themselves, their leadership, military leadership, would be the next target. And so I would think at that point, their option would be surrender, negotiate some kind of peace, get out of this somehow. Well, at the same time, they might try to sting the U.S. by hitting targets. But you know, the collapse of their proxies in Syria and Lebanon have severely limited their options.
Yeah. You're an expert on non-proliferation. Is military action really the best way to stop a nuclear program?
I think, you know, the United States and Iran were scheduled to talk in Oman on Sunday. I honestly think there was a deal space here. And I think part of Israel's calculation in doing these attacks was that they thought that Trump might accept a deal that they wouldn't be comfortable with. And so they tried to force the US's hand. And they really thought, I think, they calculated that the US would have already gotten involved. And I think they're surprised that the US has not gotten involved. And I think Trump is still holding open diplomacy, and the Iranians themselves have signaled a willingness for diplomacy. But now Iran is in a much worse position, and so the US might be able to ask for more, which is part of Israel's hope. But we'll have to see. I mean, we'll have to see what happens next. In the coming hours, we're going to see either the military option or we're going to see real diplomacy. But again, you heard Trump even escalate his demands to say unconditional surrender. I don't even know what that really means, but I think the Iranians are really wondering what they have to do. Do they give up, or do they risk themselves being killed?
Yeah. Even if the infrastructure is damaged considerably, if the regime doesn't change with it, which is a whole different can of worms that we won't get into right now, but what would stop them from just starting all over again?
Right. Part of any deal has to be intrusive monitoring, and it would be on a scale at least at the level of the JCPOA, of the old Iran deal, if not even more. Because on the one hand, Iran at that point would have a huge incentive in being transparent, because they know that if the US does attack, if it is total war to annihilate the regime, their options are very, very few. If there's less than that comprehensive monitoring, then if I'm Iranian, I'm going to try to do it again. And this time at a place far away from prying eyes. They will have learned all the lessons of what they've lost in this, and they will try to do it again even better. So I hope that they come to a deal where there is very intrusive monitoring, where Iran is incentivized not to cheat and to show that they're not cheating in order to try to come out of this with the regime intact and with some sort of economic deal for the future. But again, I think Iran made a huge mistake on the 12th when they reacted so sharply to the IAEA condemnation. I think Israel has so far overcalculated a little bit in terms of whether the US would get involved. But ultimately, Trump's in a pretty good position right now to make demands. And there is a path out for Iran, but they have to be willing to give up things that on the 12th they would never have considered giving up.
William Alberque, thank you so much. Pleasure speaking to you today.
Thank you, Nicole.
Let's speak to Manuel Herrera. He's a Senior Policy Fellow and Program Manager at BASIC. That's a London-based think tank focusing on non-proliferation and disarmament. Manuel, good to see you. I want to start by asking, how important is the Fordo nuclear site within Iran's nuclear infrastructure?
Yes, hello, good morning, and many thanks for inviting me today. The Fordo enrichment plan is quite important right now inside the whole framework of the Iranian nuclear program. Actually, right now, Iran has two, although they have announced a third enrichment facility, although that facility has not been disclosed. So currently, Iran has two main enrichment facilities, Natanz and Fordo. Fordo, let's say, it's more important right now for Iran and for its nuclear program, for one single reason. It's better protected than Natanz. It's because of the way it is, like the place where it is established under the mountain ridge of Qom. And as a consequence, it's more impenetrable. It's very difficult to, if we want to have an attack, to destroy the facility, it's very difficult to have a successful attack, either with conventional airstrikes or even with a GBU-57A bomb would be quite difficult as well to guarantee a full destruction of the enrichment equipment inside Fordo.
It's well protected. I assume the information is well protected from there as well. Benjamin Netanyahu has been saying since the 90s that Iran is close to making a nuclear weapon. Do we know for sure that they are any closer this time?
This is a key question right now. As far as we know, the Iranians have never taken any decision, any political decision. The Iranian elite has never taken a political decision in order to move forward in the development of a nuclear weapon. As far as we understand it, the enrichment levels that they have conducted till now, both 20% and also 60% of enrichment of UAE, but 235, has been mostly because of an aim to exercise political leverage vis-a-vis the United States or the international community in general. Now, what we have seen recently, like after these attacks, is the decision by the Iranian parliament in order to put forward a bill in order to get Iran outside the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, the NPT. And that could already give us a signal about what are the intentions of Iran, at least in the short run or mid run, in terms of what the future of the nuclear program might look like. So while before we were quite certain that the political decision in order to obtain a nuclear weapon was not adopted, now we are more uncertain about that. And of course, the strikes on Iran and the strikes on its nuclear facilities might have fueled that decision.
You raised the prospect of these bunker buster bombs. We heard in our report it would require several of these bunker buster bombs to reach anywhere near the depths of this Fordo site. How likely is it then that they can disable the facility that they're targeting?
Well, assessing the feasibility of destroying, let's say, the whole Fordo facility, or at least to put in check the enrichment capacity of Fordo, it's still quite uncertain. We will not be fully sure until we see one of these bombs on the ground, like in operational terms. And also, let's be quite clear about this, because we have seen the same to some extent in the case of the enrichment facility in Natanz. We can assess that, okay, the enrichment capacity of Iran might be curtailed in the near future if these kind of weapons are used, and if they are used effectively. However, that doesn't mean that Iran will not be able to have enrichment capacity and enrichment infrastructures in the future, at least on the mid-run, because Iran has already the technology and the know-how in order to rebuild its nuclear infrastructure.
Manuel, if we were taking viewer questions, I think a lot of them would surround the topic of, if Israel's right and this is a site where weapons-grade material is being refined, should we be worried about a massive bomb targeting this facility? A big bomb and nuclear-enriched materials don't sound like natural bedfellows.
No, yes, exactly. I mean, that's true, and that's actually quite a concern, because if those facilities are destroyed through explosive materials like this specific type of bunker bomb, and not only the technology but also the material that is actually being kept in there, the enriched material that is being kept there, of course there will be environmental consequences, quite severe environmental consequences, and that has already been raised by the International Atomic Energy Agency. For the time being, the agency has just published a couple of days ago that there are no signs that there are specific radiological leaks around neither Natanz nor Fordo, but that could change, of course, and that would be quite problematic, particularly because Fordo is very near to other specific cities, like, for instance, Qom.
Manuel Herrera, it's been great to get your input, non-proliferation and disarmament expert. Thanks so much for your time.
Thanks so much. Have a nice day.